Sleep Story: The Village Where Everyone Sat Down. The trouble began when a tourist asked a perfectly reasonable question. Unfortunately, nobody in the village could answer it. The tourist had arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, carrying a camera, a backpack, and the kind of confidence usually associated with people who have recently purchased hiking boots. He stood in the village square for several minutes. Then he approached the baker. The baker was sitting. This was normal. Everyone was sitting. The tourist smiled politely. "Excuse me," he said, "who was the first person to sit down?" The baker considered this. Then he looked across the square toward Mrs. Pottle, who was sitting outside the grocer's. Mrs. Pottle considered it too. Then she looked toward Mr. Vale, who was sitting beneath the chapel clock. Mr. Vale removed his hat, scratched his head, and admitted that he had no idea. Which was strange, because the people of Lintwick remembered everything. They remembered the year the river froze. They remembered the summer the mayor accidentally locked himself inside the public toilets. They remembered a disagreement about rhubarb that had continued with varying levels of enthusiasm since 1987. Yet somehow, nobody remembered who sat down first. The tourist assumed they were joking. The villagers assumed he had asked one of those questions outsiders sometimes ask. Questions like, "Which cloud belongs to your village?" or "Where does this road end?" Both questions sound simple. Neither has ever produced a satisfactory answer. The tourist stayed for 3 days. By the end of the visit, he had interviewed 32 residents. The answers he collected included the postman, the baker, the dog, a traveling accordion player, the blue chair. One elderly resident claimed the village had always been seated and that standing had been introduced much later by government officials. No evidence supporting this theory has ever been discovered. The tourist left with a notebook full of contradictions. Several months later, he published an article. The article attracted attention. Soon, historians arrived, then journalists, then researchers, then a documentary crew. The documentary crew left after 2 days because they could not find a dramatic camera angle for people sitting quietly and drinking tea. The researchers stayed longer. Researchers often do. They arrived with clipboards, charts, maps, measuring equipment. One man brought a drone. Nobody understood why. The drone contributed very little. The researchers expected to discover a cause, perhaps an event or a tradition, or perhaps an unusual historical incident involving furniture. Instead, they found something far stranger. The deeper they looked into the history of Lintwick, the less certain the history became. Old photographs showed people sitting. Old paintings showed people sitting. Church records described meetings that appeared to have taken place entirely while sitting. One document from 1842 referred to the annual sitting festival, then continued as though the reader already knew what that meant. Nobody did. The only thing everyone agreed upon was the existence of the blue chair beside the well. The chair appeared in church records. It appeared in paintings. It appeared in the oldest surviving photograph of the village. Even people who disagreed about everything else seemed to remember the same blue chair beside the well. It was always there, waiting quietly. The blue chair remains beside the well. Nobody remembers bringing it there. Nobody remembers a time before it existed. The oldest photograph in the village includes the chair. The photograph predates the carpenter who supposedly built it. Several explanations have been proposed. None are entirely satisfactory. The chair continues to wait, looking exactly as though it had somewhere important to be and unlimited time to get there. Good night.